in a science in Islam called ilm al-rijal, the science of the people, the science of the biographies, which is under the prophetic traditions called hadith. So we have thousands of testimonies concerning these realities at the time. So from a psychological perspective, how can you claim he's alive? Well, maybe you could say he's the next option, which is he was mad or deluded. But that's very hard to prove as well. And we can substantiate what I'm saying based upon his life. Now the Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, what did he do? Well, not only did he create peace and relative justice in the Arab Peninsula, but also he was engaging with other tribes to articulate the message of Islam. And while doing so, there were many events that were happening in his life. For example, his son passed away, Ibrahim, at young age. And at the same time, coinciding with the death of his son, there was an eclipse. What did all the Arabs think? They said, God did it, because your son passed away. Don't forget, this was a man that wanted the buy-in of all the tribal leaders to establish his message. If he was deluded or mad, what would he have said? Yeah, you're right. I must be the prophet. It must be me. I am the chosen one. Yeah, we do that all the time, don't we? You know, if we like somebody, oh look the way he just looked at me. He must like me, yeah? You know, we get like that sometimes. We have all these filters in our head, yeah? It must be me, yeah? So we have that on a normal social basis. But he said, no. This has nothing to do with my son or the death of anybody. It's a natural process. So you can't really claim he was deluded from that perspective. Also, look at his teachings, and we discussed some of the teachings of Muhammad upon peace concerning an economic perspective. His geopolitical outlook transcends 14 centuries, beats capitalism to the race, and says you got it wrong. There are enough limited needs and enough resources to fill these needs, so it creates a philosophy of distribution rather than one of excessive competition. So we got good arguments to say that he wasn't deluded or mad. So what's the next option? Well, some people claim maybe he was both, but if we know he couldn't be lying and he couldn't be deluded, two false things don't make a right thing. So therefore he must have been speaking the truth. It's simple, isn't it? The only counter-argument we have, and I've tried to study this at length, is one counter-argument, which is all legendary. It's based on the falsehood. The historical things that you're talking about are tales. I need to draw a picture just to justify the no, okay? And then we end it, and then we have Q&A. Right. Now, the historical narratives of Islam are so profound in terms of their robustness. To reject a historical narrative from the Islamic tradition would be to reject someone like Aristotle, because Aristotle came from Plato, the works of Plato, so it came by a testimonial process. Is to reject World War II, is to reject the Battle of Hastings, 1066, the Norman invasion of England. So, because they're based on history as well. But the robust science of the Islamic historical narrative is profound. It's called ilm al-hadith, yeah? Which is the science or the knowledge of traditions, basically. Yeah? And in the science of traditions, what you have is you have a chain of people and you have a text. Okay? This text, which is called a matan in Arabic, not just as lamb, because this is a joke we use, but it's not very funny. And we have a chain, which in Arabic is called an isnad. Isnad, okay? And this is the matan. Now, each person in this chain has a biography. We have biographical data for 10,000 people. Tell me biographical data of 5 people of Obama. Give me biographical data of 5 people of Jesus. You don't even have the second names, yeah? Luke who, Mark who, yeah? This is the only man in history we have biographical data of 10,000 people that were around him. This includes their nicknames. This includes how old they were, if they had a good memory, if they were pious, if they lied, if they were treacherous, how old they were, their lineage. This is a phenomenal science, okay? And it's called Ilm al-Rijal, okay? Basically, the science or the knowledge of people, of men. And they have to be trustworthy. So, what we mean by trustworthy, his trustworthiness has to be proven. You can't be, oh, he's never lied, so he must be trustworthy. No, it wasn't like that. You have to actually prove that he was trustworthy. Which includes that if he tricked a goat or a camel, he tricked a camel thinking, here's some food, but there's no food, he wouldn't be allowed in this chain of narration. That's how strict it was. If he lied once, won't be accepted. If he was seen not to be pious, wouldn't be accepted. Okay, so this was verified for every single one of these people, okay? So therefore, this established chain of transmission, and this text as well had criteria. For example, you can't go against like reality. If it says, for example, there are no such things as females, then you reject it because it goes against reality, right? So there's a lot of criteria for the textual analysis and the chain analysis. Now, it's a big science, but the point I'm trying to say here is, look at it. On what good reason do we have to reject this? Western history sometimes picks up the letter and doesn't have a chain of narrational authority and still accepts it as history. In the Islamic narrative, we would reject any letter without a chain of narration and a chain of trustworthy authority. And this is similar to the Western philosophy of testimony. Now, in epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, there's a field called testimony, okay? And testimony is basically the same kind of grounds. And you can look it up, testimony, yeah? And it has to be authentic and validated. And in the Islamic tradition, we authenticate it by ensuring that everyone in the chain of narration is sound, and we authenticate it by doing critical analysis on the text. And this is a far profound science. So the point I'm trying to say is, if you reject the historical narrative that's mentioned, it's like rejecting any known history. I know this is quite heavy, but I thought I'd give you a comprehensive argument so you see that we can't reject his legacy as a human being. So let's just summarize what we talked about today. And please, anyone with further questions, please raise your hand, because it's your epistemic duty, it's your duty to knowledge for you to raise your hand, otherwise why were you here in the first place? Yeah? And I don't get offended easily, don't worry. You could just ask the Daily Telegraph. So, the liars, yeah? So the point is this. We've talked about how the Prophet Muhammad, upon him peace, affected our lives in a profound way. That introduction between ourselves and Muhammad, upon him peace. Scientific revolution, the iPhone, tolerance, renaissance, the presumption of innocence. Okay? And then we spoke about some of his teachings and his legacy, which was he came to preach and teach that there is no divine reality with their worship, but the divine reality, the deity. Allah, Al-Ilah, the deity. And that frees us, because the soul, the ruh, seeks raha, that liberation, and can only achieve that by liberating yourselves away from the ephemeral nature of the world, of your ego, and social pressure. And we could analyze his legacy by saying, was he lying about that he was the last and final messenger? Was he deluded? Was he both? Or was he speaking the truth? And I think we give good reasons to show why he was speaking the truth. And if you believe that what we base this truth on is false, then you're rejecting a robust historical science. That's the summary. So I've enjoyed it. Me, when I deliver these lectures, are always therapy for myself. So even if you weren't here, I'll still give it. Yeah? This is all therapy for me, man. This is all good. So thank you very much for listening and tolerating my character. So let's open the Q&A. Yeah?
More than question, go straight to Q&A. Any questions, for example?